This is The Professionals, a podcast by music business technology and broadcast media technology students on Outcast OCCR Owens Community College Radio. In this series, students will interview industry professionals in their respective fields to help gather an idea of what it's like to work in their industry.
This isn't going to be a traditional interview. I am sitting down with someone who I very much love and deeply respect. John is someone who's shaped how I think a lot about work, creativity, and the way I care about people. We lived and worked side by side together for a while, and I got to see up close just how much pride you take in the way you work and the way you move through the world. So this conversation isn't just about the work you did, but about what it meant to you, the rhythm of it, the lessons that stayed with you, and the parts of it that still live in your hands and heart even now. In order to get a full grasp of your work, what first pulled you into your line of work? What made you want to be a part of it?
Quick background. My parents were actors, so I sort of knew about the film industry. But as far as they were concerned, the only jobs were actor, director, writer, and producer. Those were the only people that they cared about. I did not even know that there was such a thing as below the line. And then a friend of mine dropped out of high school and got a job. Started doing quite well, and so I was being a hippie Buddhist, spiritual kind of character, and my buddy kept on doing better and better and better, and so finally he said, "Come down to LA and I'll help you get a union." And I procrastinated so much that by the time I came down, he had no longer had the ability to get me a union. They changed the rules, so I spent some years just doing odd jobs around LA, and then I decided to say, I'm going to get in the film industry no matter what. At that point, I got a job as a production assistant, which is just basically a gopher on a low-budget film, which in the 1980s there were a lot of them because video had just come out. And so if you had like a couple $100,000, you could make a movie with, like the key goes in it, you could make money. Everybody and their brothers started making movies, and I was able to get a job on one of them.
When you were first starting out, what were the hardest parts to get through? And then, what kept you going through those difficulties?
Like my buddy, when he started out, all there was union work. So he started out getting a union card, and that's one of the reasons I was successful. I started working, and it took me 10 years to get a union card, which meant that I was working for very, very long hours for not much pay. At the end of the day, the producers were fully expected to give the crew beer so that they could, after they stopped filming, they could start drinking beer, so they were loading the trucks on company time. It was really not it was really quite wild.
So it was a lot of the environment for you early on that kept you interested?
A lot of the environment. There's a lot of weird freedom, a lot of the basic rules, in normal society that, you have to work for work experiences weren't there. It was pretty wild. And so it was fun. It was fun for a while, but the hours were very long and the pay was very bad. So, after you got off a job, you didn't have much money in the bank, so it's not like you could have free time and money. You were sort of we're still worrying about money. You're still looking for your next job, and everything was freelance. So you would work. You might have a low-budget movie work for 3 weeks, or you might have a commercial and work for a weekend. You didn't get the big movies where you're working for months, or the TV show where you're working for months or possibly years. So everything was very sort of chaotic. Plus the schedules, you start out Monday morning early, and by the time Friday comes along, you're probably going to work at 6 o'clock at night and getting off at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then the weekend's screwed up. So it's sort of like working, imagine being severely jet lagged for years, basically. It's very disruptive, sort of chaotic. There's an internal chaos to the entire thing that is just on a biological level.
You obviously spent a lot of time around very creative people, around a lot of creative work, and I'm getting into that same kind of environment right now. That rhythm, that routine, the craziness kind of all plays into it.
Creative environments usually do have to have a controlled craziness. You've ever talked to roadies? Yeah. That's those are really long hours of very hard work. But the job has to get done. It doesn't matter what the hours are. It still has to get done. And then the creative part you go on top of. You should read. There's a book called "What Is Art" by Leo Tolstoy. Believe it or not, translated by Maud, and he talks about this a bit. He visited the Tolstoy ballet and all that kind of stuff, and like what it was like to work backstage for the workers backstage. He talks about it, and it sounds exactly like today's film set. Okay. I mean, it's the same kind of people getting very intense and very getting into each other's faces and yelling at each other and taking it very seriously. And when the showtime comes around, it has to be all right. So it's a very fun book for somebody that's interested in specifically film as a work environment. It's 100 some odd years ago. It's the same thing.
When things were going right and you did feel like, you're in that flow and you were in the move, like what did that feel like for you?
The kind of work I did since it was freelance, you wouldn't be working with the same people all the time. So you might work with a bunch of people you don't know at all. And so you have to learn how to work with people. And most of it is don't criticize, don't tell somebody else what to do, keep your mouth shut as much as possible. Because unless it's a safety issue, it's really there's let other people do what they're going to do, and you work around it. You adapt to what they're doing, and even if it's not the way you would do it, you just work with other people.
You've always cared about doing things the right way, not cutting corners or faking things. Where do you think that pride in your work came from?
It was sort of forced on me. It was not. Back up a little bit. I was a hippie, so I had a lot of opinions and attitudes and sort of self-righteousness about a lot of things. And then I had to learn, other people, there's people with responsibility, and you have to respect the fact that they're responsible and things have to get done. And not everything can be a democracy. You have to let go of the whole. We should all be in a democracy together. No, people have jobs, and there's a pecking order of seniority, and you respect the seniority. That was a huge thing for me to learn. I mean, and I started film when I was 30, so I was pretty, I had a lot of really sort of not good habits in terms of my work. Then when you're working with a lot of different people, everyone has a slightly different way of doing, like a lot of the same tasks, how they organize something, how they go, what the first step is in the process if you're going to build something or whatever it is. And if you work with a lot of different people, I like the way this guy does this, or I like the way that guy does this. And you sort of pick up habits of like, I'm going to, and I prefer to do it this way and I prefer to do it that way. And then when you work with other people that are sort of like-minded, then the work goes really easy and really well. But when you have a boss who has a completely different approach to doing the kind of work you do, it's, and he's telling you to do something and you're doing stuff that you think you should be doing in a different way, it's not comfortable. It's difficult. So when you find a boss that does things the way you like to do it, then everything works well. And if you have a boss that, it's like, it's just tough. It's just tough.
How did you end up learning how to deal with all these people that had, I'm sure, very different temperaments, huge personalities and egos? Obviously being in the film industry, there's some very, very big people working in there. So a lot of our best work, especially in both the music and the film industry, happens behind the scenes, right? So
yeah, all that stuff, like that support staff, it has to get done. I mean, you build the stages, for the rock concert, and you hang the speakers. And those, fall down on the musician. It's not a good thing. So, those guys, to be quite honest, talk to roadies. The party continues as you're working.
That's the work that makes everything function, even, and a lot of people really don't notice that work. With that, then, thank you again, John. I really do appreciate the interview.
This has been the Professionals Podcast by Music Business Technology and Broadcast Media Technology students. Join us next time on Outcast OCCR Owens Community College Radio.